Good evening and welcome to Newsnight. My name is Charles Odongtho, and with me in the studio, as usual, old man of the clan, Andrew Mwenda. He's the managing director of the Independent News magazine and also a host. He's back at the hot seat at KFM. How do you feel it now?
Everything is fine.
Back after so many years, people were asking, what is this about this guy coming back
Let's
here?
discuss what brought us here, not KFM.
Viewer, we are going to be looking at the energy sector. Umeme is back in the news this week. The Electricity Regulatory Authority has announced a drop or a reduction in the tariff from 524.5 to 500.4. It's about 4 shillings. Does it make any sense? Does it make any difference? That's what Andrew is going to be talking about this evening. Andrew, you're most welcome.
Thank you.
Now, Andrew, sometime last year, in December to be precise, MPs released a report on the energy sector. And it was quite damning of the performance of the energy sector. There were a number of things that had to be discussed, including tariffs. And today we are going to be looking at the issue of tariffs of electricity in this country. First of all, was this reduction something that we can talk about, or like some people say, a smokescreen?
First of all, I'm very happy, Charles, because you are among the very few Ugandans who now can say that the person who sets the electricity tariff is not Umeme. It is the Uganda Electricity Regulatory Authority, a body put in place to regulate the energy sector.
By the law of Uganda.
So if the price of electricity at your meter increases, I want the people out there to know, it is not because of Umeme. It will be because of the regulatory authority. That is one. 2, out of the total price a consumer pays on the meter, Umeme takes 15%. Can I repeat it?
15%.
15%. 85% goes to generation and transmission. So this continuous Uganda ignorant MPs talk about Umeme and the tariff is one of those misguided attacks, because Umeme's contribution to the tariff is just 15%.
No, can I just make a correction there, Andrew? Just a minute. I don't actually think from the onset that the MPs, looking at the report that they did on the energy sector, said Umeme is the one responsible. Actually, one of the recommendations they made about ERA is that ERA is a lame duck, that it must get back to its foot and perform its role as is envisaged in the Electricity Act of 1990.
So can you tell me what is it that they're saying, those MPs? ERA has done wrong.
One of the recommendations is that ERA is not in charge of performing its role as provided
what
for
does
by
that mean?
That they're supposed to regulate electricity in this country and to be sure that even Umeme is regulated. What they are saying right now, according to the report that you have seen, that we have read, is that ERA is weak in that regulation. And probably that is why ERA is now reducing this cost.
Charles, save us from these members of parliament. I saw them yesterday, NTV, last night. It did a long story quoting so many MPs. All of them came across as ignorant peasants. I'm really sorry to say this. Let me tell you first of all.
No, come back to the issue.
I don't think
don't
that
go
ERA,
to the MPs.
yes, I don't think that ERA is the epitome of great regulatory competence, because ERA is an institution of Uganda managed by Ugandans, and all the incompetences you see in Ugandan society, including the incompetence of those MPs, ERA performs 90% above those MPs, performs 90% above every Ugandan journalist I know, performs 90% above everybody. But let me tell you this. One, the unmitigated disaster was that ERA tried to reduce the tariff. Why reduce the tariff? This country had gone for more than 30 years without investment in the energy sector.
Yes.
If you spend $3 in generating electricity, you are more likely to spend $1 in transmitting that electricity, and you will end up spending another $1 or $1.2 in distributing that electricity. That is how the value chain moves. That is one. 2, if you look at the energy sector in Uganda, having spent very many years without investment in electricity generation, so you have limited supply, in transmission, so you have limited carrying capacity, in distribution, you have limited distribution capability, Uganda needs heavy investment across the entire value chain in order to have electricity in everybody's home. Now, to be able to take electricity to everybody's home, you need to increase electricity generation to about 1,200 megawatts. Right now, our installed capacity is about 800 megawatts, and we are producing about 630.
Actually, we are running on about 400 as we talk.
About 630. Let me tell you another thing. If you need to transmit that electricity to build a power line, you need to put in a lot of money. If you need to distribute it, you need $400 million to improve the distribution line. Let me ask you, Charles, and everybody who is reasonable. For remember that me, when I'm speaking here, I'm speaking to the reasonable. These people who are emotional, who go into these other funny stories, I really don't care. Who will pay for that? The consumer can do the following. The consumer can say, the government of Uganda should pay for this investment without changing the price. That means the government of Uganda should divert money from education, from health, from roads. If you have potholes, if you don't have Mulago working, let no money be put there. Let it be put into electricity. The government of Uganda has 1 million objectives. One of them is, of course, to fight a war in South Sudan. So the bottom line is that ideally the consumer should pay for this electricity through the tariff. So the tariff needs to be increased in order to support investments in generation, investments in transmission, and investments in distribution.
Can I just take you on that? Are you saying that with the highest tariff rate that Uganda has, by the way, my information right now from the report of this parliament, the parliamentary investigation, which was done very well, is that Uganda now has the highest. Initially, it was Denmark. Uganda now has 520.4 as we talk. Tanzania has about 204. Kenya has 305. Rwanda is even lower than us. Are you saying that we should continue on that path and therefore increase?
But you see, the parliamentarians are telling you the result, they're not telling you the cause. Let me tell you this. You see, electricity or utility bills are always a political issue. The government of Kenya may be producing electricity at a low price because they have installed electricity capacity, which they invested in the 1980s and 90s. Now they are enjoying returns from the fact that they are no longer suffering depreciation costs. That is one. Two, if you invested in Nalwale Dam or Owen Falls Dam, electricity produced at the Owen Falls Dam is 3 cents per kilowatt hour. Electricity produced at the recent dam they have built, Bujagali, is around about 16 or no, let me say 14 cents per kilowatt hour. If you look at the new electricity tariff, the electricity that is going to be given to the people who are producing 12 megawatts, 5 megawatts, 6 megawatts, they are asking the government that for us to have a viable business in generating electricity, we need 12 cents. 12 cents is 300 Uganda shillings. And so listen, if you look at the Kenyan tariff, which is 244, even the cost of producing that electricity is 300 already. Those are the power purchase agreements. That is the price in the power purchase agreement government of Uganda is signing. So Charles, our responsibility as informed journalists, talking to people who are not informed, is to tell them, look, if you are going to invest in electricity today, you are raising money today at today's interest rate, at today's cost of cement, at today's cost of everything. Imagine a bag of cement. How much was it in 1990? So if you built a dam in 1990, it can give you electricity today in 24 years later at a cost of 2 cents. If you build a dam in 2014, it will give you a kilowatt of electricity at 12 cents.
And one of those other factors that this report is complaining about, which is contributing to the tariff, to the high tariff, is that when UEB was unbundled into UEDCL, Uganda Transmission Company and Generation, that all these people, all these companies, all these entities need an MD, they need different employees, and therefore the cost of public administration in terms of wages is so high. I have got a report, which is for now not out there, that each of the MDs of these 3 companies is paid not less than 30 million, and that is borne by the consumer. Please. Isn't that one of the facts?
You can clearly see. Now, for them, the MPs are looking at it in a linear fashion. You need to look at it in its its duality, because the efficiency gains you get by reducing the size of a company. If you are running a huge, humongous company generating electricity, you have then transmitting it, then distributing it, and having to do so many things. What do you suffer? You are likely to suffer inefficiencies resulting from a large operation. Now, when you reduce something and make it smaller and leaner, then you enjoy what we call efficiency gains. It is possible that the efficiency gains resulting from the disbundling of UEB exceed the cost of hiring 2-3 MDs now instead of 1, and hiring 3 chief financial officers instead of 1.
What do you say about the monopoly of Umeme? Umeme enjoys the monopoly of 99%. And you know, in basic economics, when someone has a monopoly, you can do as you wish, and that probably is one of the...
Yes, but you also need to study the sources of a monopoly. Like in Umeme, do you want to have 2 electricity lines running from Kampala Center to Makerere University? That is wastage. So this is a natural monopoly, because doing away with the monopoly within the same geographical area is creating what we call duplication of a service. So you have two electricity lines running from Kampala to Wandegeya, two running from Kampala to Nakasero. Why? Rather to Nakawa. It does not make economic sense for you to duplicate an electricity line. So you don't need a liberalized sector. Now, what you liberalize is regions. You can have Umeme in Kampala. You can have another company doing Soroti, another one doing Fort Portal. You can liberalize that way, but you cannot liberalize electricity distribution within one area.
Lastly, in light of this tariff reduction, what is your best advice to Umeme, to the power sector, to government in this
Well,
case?
let me first answer the original question actually asked me, which was important about the power tariff in other countries. So I've told you it depends upon when they invested in electricity and at what price that electricity is being produced today. If they invested 20 years ago, Uganda had invested 50 years earlier, Owen Falls Dam. But the second cause is, you see, electricity prices are political. A government may say, we don't want our citizens to suffer the economic costs of the right price of electricity, so we will subsidize it, and they pay a political price, which is decided by us as politicians. And let me tell you the problem with this. Governments may want to avoid the political costs of a high electricity price by subsidizing it. Does the Ugandan consumer want electricity government to subsidize electricity? Government of Uganda last year was subsidizing electricity. We are producing electricity from these thermal generators at 1,000 shillings per kilowatt hour. And you know how much we were selling it? They were selling it at 400. If you produce electricity at 1,000 and sell it at 400, who pays for the 600? It is you, the taxpayer. So government takes your taxes, and instead of putting it in more productive ventures, they go to the subsidize who? Let me tell you who benefits. 60% of total electricity consumption in Uganda is by the large companies, MTN, Stanbic Bank, Standard Chartered Bank. I did a calculation. I found that MTN in 2012 made a profit of 240 billion. The government of Uganda had paid for MTN 16 billion in electricity subsidies. If government of Uganda did not pay those subsidies, MTN's profit would have fallen from 240 billion to 224 billion. You think MTN would have left Uganda because of that 16 billion? So the biggest beneficiary of electricity subsidies, these MPs are talking about, 80% of the total subsidies were going to the big companies which are making humongous profits, banks, telecom companies, and the biggest subsidy was going to the American ambassador to light his swimming pool, was going to Sudir to light his garden with electricity.
Well, Andrew, we have come to the end of this show today. I know that we are very interesting discussion.
The poorest consumer in Uganda consumes so little electricity and enjoys very little of this subsidy. So electricity should not be subsidized.
I know that the issue, the discussion of electricity is not going to end here. We shall be having it more, and as long as we are still going to be discussing development and energy in this country. That was Newsnight. Good evening.